the finance industry is looking at ESG right now. So the UN SDGs are absolutely fundamental, but it seems as though we're not making enough progress towards achieving the UN SDGs, and more research, which is a living systems paradigm or a regenerative paradigm. And what that is really looking at nature and what we can learn from nature. If we look at more of our individual inner lives, we will then improve our decision making and the quality of the work we do.
Good morning to you all, to our viewers. Today, I'm with my guest, Chris Burton, and we're gonna discuss today about the September podcast, which is the paradigm shift for performance at the workplace. So, Chris, tell us to start with, tell us more about your work career and what brings you here today.
Thank you, Jerome. I'm a UK chartered accountant, so studied as an auditor with Deloitte originally. Then I became a finance director of a beers, wines and spirits company for 10 years based in the Channel Islands, which was a lovely experience. But I then decided that I needed a bit more understanding of what's going on in business and took an MBA in Lyon. And that's followed by joining a trust company in Geneva, then an NGO, and now I'm relaunching my own organization based on promoting this paradigm shift, because this shift will increase performance within all organizations, but also help to contribute to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay. Well, what is the case today for a paradigm change?
Well, the current paradigm is the capitalism, neoliberalism, globalization, individualization, and the current mechanistic way that organizations are run, with often a rigid hierarchy, slower decision making, authoritarian approach. And what this has led to is environmental problems and mental issues with employees. The environmental side is probably well known at the moment. The climate change, lack of biodiversity, the lowering of the water table, the pollution, the plastics in the seas. We've kind of understood the problem, but when it comes to people, I think we've underestimated the problem. A lot of senior management team and indeed everybody, including the banking and finance center, are under an awful lot of stress, a lot of strategic change, a lot of relocations, a lot of laying off, a lot of increasing in performance indicators. And this has created an awful lot of stress in people, a lot of anxiety, a lot of problems. And really now we're hearing a lot about burnout and the problems that causes for organizations, but especially for the individuals themselves. So the current paradigm has led us to where we are, but it has also caused the problems, and it's now time to move on to a new paradigm.
So, what are the organization and individual costs of business as usual?
Well, it really is underperformance. And what happens with underperformance through stress or the way that the corporate culture is working is that people get a little bit overstressed, overthinking, and they then do their work a lot slower because their brains are thinking of other things all the time, and they are not really in the flow. They're not really working at a higher performance level. They're suffering from anxiety, moving towards burnout, which means, as far as an organization is concerned, your colleagues are working that little bit slower. What happens is your brain actually restricts down, and your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system takes over, and it means only 5% of your brain is accessible when you're in this high beta mode, as they call it. And a lot of work for organizations and decision making is therefore being based on only 5% of your capacity. And that's for everybody who is under stress and in high beta mode. So the organization is basically suffering those hidden costs because the employee is still there, but the time they take and the quality of decision making can be materially affected. And for the individual, they are the ones suffering this stressful survival kind of coping mechanism whilst at work, which unfortunately at the moment is leading to a lot more mental issues within organizations, which again leads to additional costs of people leaving, rehiring new people and retraining. So there's costs everywhere. And this is very prevalent within the banking and finance industry because of the pressure of these relocations, cost control, and performance indicators.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about how continued stress affects the brain and performances at workplace?
Well, yes, I've already hinted at that there in the previous answer, that the brain does
Okay.
shrink, and we really just we get in survival and burnout mode, and what happens is we actually get stuck in this high beta approach, and we just can't relax. So what we need to learn is how to understand our triggers and what our natural self really is. But I think we talk about later. But right now, the abundance of stress is really undermining business performance.
Okay. So what would be the solution for reduce discontinued stress?
Well, it really is a supportive organizational environment, but I think we need to start with ourselves. If we know we're under stress and continual stress, because stress is actually good for you, it makes you do something. But when it's continual, we move into this high beta mode and we can't really relax. Our thoughts are going all over the place. So to learn to relax, we have to actually think about planning the way we run our lives. So we need to just learn to slow the mind down, relax, take more physical exercise, have better sleep and renewal, taking breaks whilst at work, having good nutrition, but really start an inner inquiry, inner work into what makes you tick. To actually really understand yourself, because at our core, we are all happiness, creativity, and joy. But the way we think about work and the stress that organizations place on the individual means that we've just lost touch with our inner lives. And when we reconnect, we can then blossom and flourish and be more vibrant and contribute more to our own lives, but also our organization lives.
Okay. So what is the paradigm shift you believe is needed today?
Yes, this paradigm shift is towards some scientifically based research that's going on at the moment, a quantum paradigm, horrible words, so I'll change that towards some more research, which is a living systems paradigm or a regenerative paradigm. And what that is really looking at nature and what we can learn from nature, which is a living system. So yesterday I was at the Jardin Botanique in Geneva, for example, but it doesn't just work. As far as an environment like that, you need different trees, you need different soil, you need to water, you need the sun, you need to manage in a way, but know that you can't really control it. It's a living system, and that's really the same for organizations, especially in the banking and finance industry. It really is people and people's relationships and how they get on is the heart of it. And when we start looking at a living systems approach, instead of hierarchy saying, you do this, you do that, we try to loosen, I wouldn't say get rid of, but loosen the authority and command and control, and try and lower the decision making and responsibility to the staff that are there. Nearly all the employees have degrees nowadays, very intelligent people, and they actually have the knowledge and understanding to do the job. And we need to use this living systems regenerative approach to actually encourage that responsibility and creativity and decision making in all the staff, not just the hierarchy.
Okay. So I understand you're the Inner Developed Goals Geneva Hub co-creator. Can you give us a few words about this, Chris?
Yes, in 2015, the United Nations came out with the Sustainable Development Goals, and a lot of the finance industry is looking at ESG right now. So the UN SDGs are absolutely fundamental, but it seems as though we're not making enough progress towards achieving the UN SDGs, or even ESG reporting and companies getting involved in ESG. So what the IDG people are saying is, if we look at more of our individual inner lives, we will then improve our decision making and the quality of the work we do within the organization to help achieve the UN SDGs. So there are actually 5 inner development goals, which is firstly your being, really understanding your self-awareness, your self-inquiry, which I mentioned earlier, because when you touch your inner knowing, you have a lot of freedom and peace and creativity yourself. The next goal is that of thinking. When it comes to the way organizations work at the moment, they very much look at things in a very logical, process based. But when we look at achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, they are complex issues, and complex issues cannot be controlled. So we need to understand the system that we're working in. And that will then guide the way we build our relationships and communication skills, because we can't sort these problems out ourselves. We need to relate to others and work together through the next goal, which is collaboration, to actually achieve something together. So I work for an NGO on the elimination of child labour, and that involves governments, unions, farmers. There are a lot of people involved in the system of child labour or the elimination of child labour, and you need to have quality collaboration, quality listening skills, making sure that you build this cohesive environment to help figure out what you want to do together and then actually enact it. So the last inner development goal is to actually act, to actually do something to help achieve the UN SDGs. And ESG and the finance industry can play a really good part in investing in organizations that go that way, or identify the organizations that are good at ESG. So the inner development goals, I think, are fundamental as part of this change towards a living system paradigm.
Okay. So how do you see the future, Chris?
Well, given that I made it look quite bad, I'm actually very confident that we are going to understand this approach. The current paradigm has struggled so much. We know we've got to change, and scientific research and a lot of organizations are saying this new approach is the way to go. What that will do is actually increase individual consciousness or understanding of ourselves. And once we get there, we actually then start thinking about others. So we relate, collaborate, and actually talk and look after a much bigger environment than just ourselves. We move from the I, what's in it for me, to what's in it for the we, for everybody. And this paradigm shift will help us want to all work together to achieve the UN SDGs, and through doing that, also actually help the individual banking and finance organizations that we're working for.
Okay. Well, thank you for those few lines, and we're going to resume our podcast today. Maybe a final word, Chris?
Well, yeah, thank you, Jerome. And I think if anybody wants to know more about this new paradigm or join the Geneva Hub for the inner development goals, please contact me. And just thank you again, Jerome. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure too, Chris. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.